Next on the news.
Santo Padre.
Pope Francis bringing change to the Vatican as the Consistory of Cardinals gets underway this weekend. Also,
God wants to heal people, and that he does, and that this environment is just so supportive.
It's all about grieving and healing. We speak with the founder of Rachel's Vineyard, Dr. Teresa Burke, about the help for women and couples after an abortion. And a 101-year-old Holocaust survivor and World War II veteran has some advice about how you can have a beautiful life just like him. Plus, a drought down south leads to the discovery of something that dates back to prehistoric times. I'm Christine Persichetti. This special edition of Currents News starts right now. Changes coming this weekend in the makeup of cardinals at the Vatican. Pope Francis will have 20 new advisors once the Consistory of Cardinals has concluded. And we've already heard from one bishop who's being elevated.
I said a big prayer. I said several prayers because I was stunned.
That was Bishop Robert McElroy of the Diocese of San Diego in May after learning Pope Francis named him a cardinal. Come Saturday, that title will be official.
I'm deeply honored by this appointment.
Santo Padre.
Pope Francis will elevate McElroy and 19 others to the College of Cardinals at the Vatican on August 27th, raising the number of cardinals to 227. 132 of them will be electors, those who could choose the next pope. Aside from the quantity, another thing that's changed in the College of Cardinals is the nationality of them. For example, in 2013, Asia and Oceania had 11 cardinal electors. After the consistory, they'll have 24, and some come from areas where there have never been cardinals before, such as Tonga and Papua New Guinea.
On the one hand, it responds to a need of this pontificate, which has always talked about emphasizing the peripheries and putting them on the front lines. On the other hand, it favors candidates who have a strong knowledge of their local areas, but less of the universal church.
Europe doesn't change much in terms of numbers, going from 60 to 54. However, there is a drop in the number of Italian electors. The U.S. now has 17 cardinals, 10 of whom can vote in a conclave. Cardinal-elect McElroy is the only American being installed at this consistory. Along with his new duties, he will continue to lead the Diocese of San Diego.
I'll have to be traveling a bit more, but other than that, my life won't change very much. But I don't think it's going to be a big transformation in my life. I pray it can be some way of additionally serving the church and God.
After the consistory this weekend, almost 60% of the cardinal electors will have been chosen by Pope Francis. Pope Francis has left open the possibility of one day stepping down from the papacy if he felt unable to govern the church. In that case, Cardinal designate Robert McElroy will be one of the electors who select the next pope. And he says whoever enters that role should continue Pope Francis's efforts in building a more inclusive church.
I would hope that the trajectories of the renewal that Pope Francis has begun would be a high priority in seeking the next pope, because I hope that will be many years down the road, but it'll still be important to try to bring those currents more fully into the life of the church at all levels.
Speaking ahead of the consistory, McElroy says his nomination is also a chance to bring the American Catholic community closer to the global church. Bishop McElroy's Diocese of San Diego will be watching the consistory live. To join them, just go to their website, sdcatholic.org. That will happen on Saturday, August 27th, beginning at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. And of course, you can turn to Currents News and the tablet all this weekend for updates on the consistory and the 20 new cardinals now in the Catholic Church. The new consistory is just one of the items on the Pope's busy schedule, both this weekend and over the next month. After presiding over the consistory on August 27th, he will go on a day trip to the Italian town of L'Aquila, where he will visit the tomb of Pope Celestine V. On August 29th and 30th, the Holy Father will meet with cardinals from around the world. Next month, he will beatify Pope John Paul I on September 4th. He plans to visit Kazakhstan from the 13th to the 15th, and the Pope will also visit Assisi and Matera on September 24th and 25th. You can watch the Holy Father's Mass at the Basilica of Santa Maria di Colomagio in L'Aquila right here on NET. That's Sunday, August 28th at 5 p.m. Again, that Mass will air right here on NET TV. In New York, fleets of buses carrying migrants from the Texas border continue to make their way to the city. On Wednesday, 5 buses carrying nearly 250 migrants rolled into Port Authority. According to the mayor's Office of Immigrant Affairs, more than 6,300 migrants have arrived in the city from the southern border since May. And on average, about 100 migrants have been dropped off daily at the Port Authority bus terminal since the first charter bus from Texas showed up. City officials have been there greeting the migrants as they step off the bus, and they say many of them arrived wearing bracelets with barcodes on them. The city believes the barcodes are being used as tracking devices to keep the migrants from leaving the bus until they get to New York City or Washington, D.C. However, the migrants arriving say they don't mind the bracelets and that they're just thankful to be in the country. But now that they're here, the city is scrambling to make room for them. With the shelter system overloaded, officials have made emergency deals with 14 hotels to house the new arrivals. City Hall refused to say how much is being spent on this initiative. However, analysts estimate the annual cost could top $300 million. And both Mayor Adams and Governor Kathy Hochul have appealed to other states to help house the migrants. It's an epic journey, migrants looking to escape danger and forge a new life in the U.S. These migrants received some much-needed items when they were in Texas before boarding buses that were bound for cities in different parts of the U.S. Amid this migrant crisis, the perilous journey to the U.S. has a tragic end for many. One family who lost a key member who drowned crossing the border at the Rio Grande has now arrived in Chicago. They have reunited with their other family members in Illinois, hoping to start new lives in America. Currents News' Melissa Corsi has their story.
A boat with mostly Venezuelan migrants in the jungle in Panama. The man behind the child is Juan Pulido. He's trying to get to America with his brother and a cousin. We met his brother Luis Pulido and the cousin Einar Garrido at a shelter on the border in Eagle Pass, Texas. They had just received the horrible news that Juan's body had been recovered in the Rio Grande near Eagle Pass. He had drowned in the final minutes of their 2-month journey, while they were all swimming across the river to Texas. 1 week later, after a tragic and traumatizing trip, Luis and Einar are now living in Chicago, where they hope to start a new life.
Muy bonito y Chicago.
Chicago is very pretty, very peaceful, very beautiful.
Thank you, Infinity, thank you.
Both cousins took a 42-hour ride on one of the buses provided by the Texas governor, who wants migrants to go elsewhere. They rode from Eagle Pass to Washington, D.C., and then managed to get to Chicago, where they have family. This would have been Juan's 27th birthday. Luis says his brother's legacy is honored by them now being in America.
De que su sacrificio no fue en vano.
He says his sacrifices were not in vain. He's in our hearts. Everyone knew he was an excellent human being. He's here with us, even though he didn't have a cape. He was a superhero. Einar and Luis surrendered to U.S. Border Patrol when they arrived and received documentation that declared they have been paroled into the United States and are required to show up in court and attend their immigration court hearing in 2 weeks. They both say they will. Right now, they have no money and no clothes. They went to a Mexican restaurant close to their apartment, asking the owner about the possibility of working there. The restaurant owner saying, "We don't have anything now. Give me your names and telephone numbers and I will let you know when we do." But owner Alicia Castro, whose father immigrated from Mexico, knows she can't legally employ them without a work permit, which you can't get if you haven't had your asylum request approved by the immigration judge.
I wish I could help them right now with all my heart, but unfortunately I can't at the moment.
So for now, Einar and Luis will share 1 bedroom and 2 mattresses with 3 other men, and hope that one day they and their families back in Venezuela all become Americans. Melissa Corsi, Currents News.
Both Luis and Einer have wives and children in Venezuela whom they hope to be able to bring here someday. Meanwhile, Catholic Charities Brooklyn and Queens has been preparing bags of essential items to hand out to the migrants arriving in New York City. The bags include all sorts of daily necessities like toothbrushes, Band-Aids, towels, and more. They were donated by the Zach Pack Cares program, which aims to provide compassion and hope for low-income and disadvantaged individuals within every community. A federal judge Friday declared a homeless man who allegedly desecrated a crucifix in Brooklyn last year mentally unfit to stand trial. Ali Alahiri will now spend 90 days in a psychiatric treatment facility before he's evaluated again for competency. Alahiri was charged with a hate crime for busting up a wooden crucifix outside of St. Athanasius Church in Bensonhurst. The church's pastor at the time, Monsignor David Casado, said the crucifix was put up in memory of his mother. Alahiri also faces a federal arson charge in connection to a fire deliberately set at a Borough Park synagogue. A much-loved Staten Island-born Navy chaplain has had his sainthood cause stalled. Maryknoll father Vincent Cappadanos, affectionately known as the Grunt Padre, died while helping the Marines in combat in Vietnam. His heroism earned him the highest military award, the Medal of Honor, and efforts to get him canonized. But theological consultants picked by the Pope have suggested a suspension of the cause, citing several concerns about whether Father Cappadanos should be a saint. Let's take a look at them. The first is on Father Cappadanos' Positio, the formal brief arguing for his canonization. It focuses on his last year of life, and the consultants worry that does not provide a full picture of the required virtuous life. Second, they worry of a possible sign of disobedience, as a Maryknoll missionary, the Grunt Padre, objected to being sent to Hong Kong. They were also worried that Maryknoll did not pursue his sainthood cause. Consultants noted Father Cappadanos was fastidious about his appearance, a possible sign of sinful pride. And finally, they worry venerating service members may not be appropriate for the church. The recommendation by the theological consultants is under consideration by the group, which ultimately decides whether a case moves on to the Pope, the dicastery for the causes of saints at the Vatican. But just because they have concerns doesn't mean the Grunt Padre can't be a saint. The tablet newspaper spoke with Monsignor Robert Sarno, a Brooklyn native who retired as an official with the dicastery after almost 40 years of service. He contests each of the consultants' recommendations and tells us more about why the vote for suspension could be reversed. To read more of what Monsignor Sarno had to say, just pick up a copy of the paper at your local church. To get future papers delivered straight to you, just go to thetablet.org and subscribe. There's a lot more news headed your way. It's all about healing and grieving. We'll speak with the founder of Rachel's Vineyard about help couples can receive after an abortion. Also, why Moderna is suing competitors Pfizer and BioNTech over COVID vaccinations. And dozens of New York City firefighters could lose their jobs, all over the vaccination status. A slew of trigger laws have now kicked in, banning abortions in 2 states. On Thursday, Tennessee and Texas joined 8 other states that have formally outlawed abortion since the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade in June. A ban on the procedure was also expected to take effect in North Dakota Friday, but a judge there blocked the measure, saying he would like some time to weigh the arguments from the state's single abortion clinic. North Dakota currently allows abortion up until 20 weeks or more post-conception. The ban that was set to take effect Friday would make it a felony to perform an abortion in the state, with exceptions for the life of the mother or in cases of rape or incest. For more than 35 years, Rachel's Vineyard has been offering hope to post-abortive couples through 3-day weekend retreats. From September 2nd to the 4th, the Diocese of Ogdensburg in upstate New York will be hosting its own. Founder Dr. Teresa Burke joins us now ahead of the retreat to tell us more. Thanks so much for being with us.
Oh, it's my privilege.
So, Dr. Burke, we know these retreats are offered in 87 countries and in numerous languages. So what can participants expect when they go?
Well, it's a very safe place. It's a non-judgmental atmosphere where your confidentiality is respected. And most of the people who run the retreats and compose the retreat teams are women and men who have suffered the loss of a child from abortion. And they know well the agony and the grief and all the different levels of the way that manifests itself from feeling fine right after the abortion till many, many years later, almost a post-traumatic stress disorder, where they're triggered by things and the grief surfaces after many years. So they're aware of the dynamics. They're very dedicated. Everyone's volunteer. And it's just a beautiful experience to enter a grieving process that perhaps you've never been able to do before over that loss. Because most women, they feel the event's over. Initially, they might feel relief, and then any feelings that are related to the loss, any ambivalence, they just stuff that very deep. And those are the memories and feelings that can lead to a complicated bereavement and also post-traumatic stress disorder. And as I've studied all these years, many kinds of traumatic reenactments of that loss, which hasn't been processed, mourned, or integrated.
So after all of these years, what have you discovered while doing these retreats?
I've discovered that God wants to heal people, and that He does, and that this environment is just so supportive, because many people think that they're crazy or they're the only ones who feel this way. And when they come into a group with other people who've had this loss and this burden and a lot of self-blame and even self-hatred, depression, all the symptoms, they thought they were the only one. And there's such a beautiful lifting of knowing that I'm not alone in this. And that's why I'm such an advocate of the support group model, because it does normalize the experience of a natural, normal grieving that for so many men and women never happens, especially when it's been framed as a choice, as medical care. So when they're assaulted by negative feelings, they don't know what's wrong.
So after a weekend retreat, how does that help with the grieving process moving forward?
Well, they share the story of what happened to them, which many women have never told anybody, including when they get married, their partners. Many people keep it a secret. We know this from the data. They don't even tell their healthcare providers because there can be shame and also the grief that they just don't want to get close to.
As we just mentioned in the newscast, more abortion bans are taking effect across the country. However, that's not the case in some states like New York. So we know some will travel out of state for the procedure. But are you hopeful there will be fewer abortions now?
Well, knowing how devastating that abortion can be for men and women, yes, I am hopeful of that, just because I wouldn't want to see anybody go through that needlessly, especially when they didn't have informed consent about these kinds of reactions, including suicidality, increase in alcohol and drug abuse, things to numb the pain, because it is a traumatic experience, and that should be processed.
All right, Dr. Teresa Burke, founder of Rachel's Vineyard. Thanks for joining us, and thanks for the work you do.
Thank you.
For more information about the upcoming retreat on September 2nd, just go to their website, rachelsvineyard.org, or call 518-524-0774. Drug company Moderna is suing competitors Pfizer and BioNTech, accusing the rivals of copying its COVID vaccine technology. According to court documents, Moderna claims that Pfizer and BioNTech's vaccine infringes on patents Moderna filed several years ago for its messenger RNA technology. Moderna and Pfizer's two-shot vaccines both use mRNA technology to help patients fight the coronavirus. Moderna is not looking to remove the rival vaccines from the market, but it is seeking monetary damages. In another legal battle, dozens of unvaccinated FDNY personnel could soon lose their jobs. The city is expected to terminate 70 firefighters due to COVID mandates. But now union leaders are calling on officials to allow the first responders to continue working, arguing that the mandates should not be in place under the latest CDC guidance. Right now, 98% of FDNY personnel are fully vaccinated. Police are investigating another incident involving an off-duty NYPD officer being robbed and assaulted. Last Friday, 3 armed men confronted a 26-year-old officer and his 2 cousins while they were walking to their car in Inwood. The 3 stole the officer's phone, wallet, and a chain from his cousin. Police believe this incident could be linked to Tuesday's brutal mugging in the Bronx, where another off-duty officer was hospitalized with a fractured skull. A South Sudan diplomat has been recalled to his native country after he used his diplomatic status to get out of a rape charge in Manhattan. Charles Oliha was sent back to North Africa Thursday and suspended from his duties as he awaits the outcome of an investigation from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. The 24-year-old victim reported that Oliha attacked her while walking her neighbor's dog in Washington Heights. He was arrested last Sunday but released early Monday morning after he invoked his diplomatic status. Still to come on Currents News, he's a Holocaust survivor and a World War II veteran. Next, he's got some advice about how to live a beautiful life and how the severe drought in Texas uncovered something from prehistoric times. It's an amazing story of survival. Robert Schweiger is now 101 years old. He's seen dark moments in history, the Holocaust and World War II, but still, he says he's had a beautiful life. And as Wendy Lane reports, he's sharing his secrets so you can have one too.
You're never going to amount to anything looking for a free lunch.
Robert Schweiger knows the value of hard work. He enjoys cooking dinner each night after spending the day doing options trading.
What is your age?
71. I mean, not 71. I was born in 1921. That makes me 101.
And him making it to this ripe old age is a miracle all on its own.
That's when we arrived in America.
Robert is a Holocaust survivor, but many on his Jewish family tree were not as fortunate.
Erwin, see, that's my brother. He got killed in the concentration camp.
He and his family escaped Austria when he was 16, eventually making it to the Detroit area.
We came to this country, and between my mother and I, we had $7 in our pocket.
But just a few years after finding refuge on American soil, Robert was drafted into World War II. Sent back to the land he escaped from, facing death yet again as one of the first groups to arrive to Normandy on D-Day.
We were dug in on the beach, at Omaha Beach, I remember, take the shovel, dig in a little bit. You swear that that plane that you see up there can see you in that foxhole.
The highly decorated World War II hero escaping Europe with his life for a second time.
3 Bronze Stars, and I got a Presidential Unit Citation.
Before moving to Bradenton in the 70s, Robert became a successful businessman in the Detroit auto industry. He had a family and was happily married to his sweetheart for 78 years until she passed away just a few years ago.
I still miss her just terribly. They say it's going to get a little better, but it really doesn't get better. She was part of my life,
Despite his loss, this World War II hero, Holocaust survivor, and refugee knows something about perseverance. And the secret to Robert's successful and fruitful life, he says, is simple. Work hard and
don't drink any cheap booze. That'll do you in.
You gotta love that. That was Wendy Lane reporting. Robert says living in this country is a gift he has never taken for granted. And finally, here's something much, much older than Robert. The severe drought in Texas has uncovered dinosaur tracks from about 113 million years ago. They were exposed when a river dried out in Dinosaur Valley State Park. A park official says these tracks likely came from a dino that weighed 7 tons and was 15 feet tall. The tracks will be covered up again with the coming rain, but park officials say that's good because the water helps protect the prints from disappearing forever. Wow. And that is Currents News. I'm Christine Persichetti. Thank you for joining us because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time.